So I'd like to welcome you all here. And I'll let Phil Kiefer kind of brief you on the rig. And
this is actually it's a Ponzi Bear, about 325 horse. We generally run a harvester log head on there for thinning timber. We built this for you guys to come down here to Arizona and cut juniper with it. We could cut about a 60-foot swath with it at one time, 30 on each side. We did that so we could reduce our ground compaction huge wherever we go, log, farm, whatever. And yeah.
There's a couple of key features that I thought were really cool. So it has an onboard fire suppression system. See those red ports along the side? They must have these deals here.
There's about 50 of them on the machine.
Around the machine. And if there's smoke in the air, they do the fire extinguisher thing out. A lot of machines in the woods burn up. High temperature, operating conditions, a little bit of grease, a lot of material. So that's just the beginning of that corporate mentality, if you get what I'm saying. They cover the bases. Ponzi only makes forestry machines. That's all they do. So this is state of the art. We're very happy to have it here. The other thing, like Phil said, is that boom extends to 30 feet, so he has ultimate control. We were working a riparian zone on the last ranch, and Phil was staying up away from the bank edge, had a beautiful, walnut, sycamore, great riparian zone choked up with junipers underneath it. He just walked right down the edge and just around trees, pulled them out. So he can be very delicate in his approach. When he gets going, it's kind of rough, but ripping and snarling. But the machine with an excellent operator can do great things.
And I'd just like to point out that many other machine types with the harvester head mounted directly to it, say on a front end loader, would have to drive, and approach each tree and back away, approach each tree and back away. And so that is a lot more impact on the ground. They're not typically made for low impact on the soil in the first place. They're construction machinery oftentimes, and this is. So we got very low PSI on the soil and a lot less driving to reach each
Good
tree.
point. Just because of that physical different configuration. Less than 10 PSI sitting right here in front of you.
So is
Yes,
that then less impactful than the what do you call them, the tread, the systems with the tracks?
Well, what John's
Track
saying, that's a
systems?
really good question. We have tracks, Ponzi has tracks that are called eco tracks, and actually get you up more. We also have a more aggressive track that we'll be using in higher or steeper ground where you want footing. But the point that John is making is that if that head were attached to the carrier, well, number one, you couldn't cut any of the trees he's cutting because the limbs come out at you and you just physically cannot get in there. But even if
you
you
can't be that selective,
but even if you could, even if all the trees out here were single stem junipers all day long, you would have to drive that machine to it and cut it. And if you want to do any bunching of material, which gathers up what you just cut for the next phase, which is the forwarder, to incorporate that efficiency, then you take that feller buncher, you take your tree and you lay it down. Well, you're backing up, you're driving, you've done 3 or 4 turns to get one tree.
The turns are what tears up.
The turns are what tears it up. Right. Skid steers are, just because they're little, doesn't mean that they're the best tool for the ground. This is the best tool without a doubt, and you'll see. Because he's able to go out and manipulate a weight without even moving that rig. And when you get an experienced operator team, like Phil and Sean, then they can work together so that Phil can even create what's called ghost trails. So he can go out, do his thing, and basically when he's got that material in that boom, he can put it where he wants it. Well, if that's pulling back, so when the forwarder comes up, he doesn't have to go as far, then you start getting these efficiencies and less impact on the ground. And that's what we're all about.
What's the forwarder?
It is this rig, and it'll be here later today. It has a crane, and it has a grapple on the crane and a bunk.
Okay.
So it self-loads. And it can carry what, 25 tons?
Of log.
Yeah, but
probably
I mean,
about 15 ton of brush.
Yeah. We also, Ponzi also has in their fleet lineup, and we don't have it, but some, for the right application, are compression bunks. See, the whole gig about, we're going to do excellent forestry on the ground. We're going to do it with the right tools, practice best management practices, but we know the way to get this thing cooking and make it efficient is minimal handling and semi-compaction as we go. If we had a high-speed grinder sitting down here and we were feeding Novell Power or somewhere with grindings, you have him harvested, it breaks it up, you let it dry, you have the forwarder come in, put it on the buggy, if they're compacted or even if they're not. Then you have a semi-compacted kind of big loaf next to the road. Well, if you're going into a high-speed mill, then that makes that more efficient. So a whole part of what we're developing and exploring here is that best approach that we can build from. And we're learning some stuff. You know, to kill them, you could herbicide. So this head was a processor head. This hood has a